What's up, YouTube? It's NG, the Neon X, and I'm back. So the tablet I have an interest in is, of course, the S10 Ultra.
Now everybody scream enough respect to the X. Enough respect given.
I currently have an S8 Ultra. It has served me well. There is really no real reason I would need to trade this device in as far as the work that I do on it. But like I said in my previous vid, it is getting a little long in the tooth, as they say. It is now an older device with an older chipset, and it is missing certain upgrades that I would not mind having on my everyday use tablet. My only real concern with the Tab S10 line is this MediaTek chipset that they have inside it. Now, I'm not against these chips as long as the device runs. I'm happy, but I've never viewed MediaTek chipsets as high-end chipsets. The Tabs and the S9 has always had the Snapdragon, and they've always done me well. So though I have no kind of benchmark to compare the two chipsets, it is to wonder how well does this chipset perform, and will it be able to handle the loads that I throw on my Tab S8 Ultra, because it is, at least for me, my main computing device. If you didn't see my unboxing, here's a quick review of that. In the box, you get the tablet itself. It looks really nice. I got the silver one. In stark contrast to the black I got with the Tab S8. I love the size. I love the screen. Not much has changed there. Also in the box, you get the S Pen. This time I have a white one. Again, I had the black one beforehand. Now here's the case that they sent with the Tab S10 Ultra if you happen to pre-order the device. It is the slim cover keyboard case. Now you'll note that there's no trackpad. So here are both of the devices side by side, the 10 and the 8. Let's see if it's really worth the upgrade from one to the other. So, comparing the two devices side by side, you would be hard pressed to tell the difference at a mere glance. They both look pretty much identical, if not for the fact that I got the light silver version of the Tab S10 Ultra, and for my Tab S8 I went with a full-on black. You would not be able to tell me outright which one was which. Now, looking around the back of them, you start to see slight changes on them. First off, the strip for the pen. With both of the devices, they have changed it. On the S8, it's much wider and blends right into the camera hump. With the Tab S10, it is the size of the pen itself, and it breaks off before it goes to where the camera hump is. So it's two separate pieces, where it looks to be two separate pieces. Speaking of the hump, as you can see, the hump on the S10, or the camera hump, you have two lenses now. 1, 2, and it's a little wider than the lens on the S8. You can actually barely see the lens on the S8 because it blends right into the charging pad for the pen. It's one simple strip, and that's how they want it to look like one piece. But the camera itself is here, and it's not as large as the one on the Tab S10, but it does have the same cameras though, the wide angle and such for depth and all of that. Aside from that, the tablets themselves are pretty much the same. Well, if you look closely, there is one more difference. The lines on the tablet. See how it kind of comes up here and just has an exit here, goes up, exit, and then goes up again. Same thing on this side. Now, I'm not exactly sure what these lines are for, but on the Tab S10, you see there, it does it, but it drops in the middle. If that's just a design thing, I'm not quite sure, but that is another difference you can see when you put these things side by side. Aside from that, the same connector on each one. Okay. Aside from that, you have the same connector pins on each one with the same lock-in for your accessories. On the top with both of them, you have your buttons for power and volume. You have your SIM card tray in the exact same spot on each. So it really is just to say that Samsung pretty much took the frame of their older tabs and upgraded the internals to make the Tab S10, because it is the exact same weight, at least to me, the exact same dimensions. Physically, except for the 2 or 3 little items I did point out, there is no difference between these tabs. And this is a good thing, because in theory, all the accessories, or at least most of the accessories for my Tab S8 should work on my Tab S10, except for maybe back panels that go over the camera hump, because as I just say, this camera hump is a little bigger than that, so that might be an issue depending on what you're trying to put back there. So one of the first things I did once I had everything out of the box was transfer all of my data from my Tab S8 to the Tab S10. It didn't take too long. I used the wireless, I think called Samsung switch, and it's always worked well for me. This time was no different. The next thing that I did was attempt to transfer my editing packets from one device to the other. The first app that I tried to do this with is called Power Director. It's the main app I use to edit my vids, and I went through all of these steps to do it. I uploaded it to their cloud. I tried to download it to the Tab S10, and it would not work. Every time I tried, it froze. I don't know if this is a software issue on the cloud's part, or if this is an underlying issue with the chipset of the Tab S10, but I just cannot get the packet to download to the tablet, and that was very frustrating. Now, the next app I tried to do this with is called Luma Fusion. I followed the directions, upload to the server of your choice or destination, send the packet file over and download. It took a few tries for me to find the right spot to actually set the packet at, but when all was said and done, it did actually go through, and I was able to open the file on the Tab S10 without any issue. So maybe it's not the chipset. It might just have been Power Director. Once I had both packets open on both devices, it was time to see just how well this new chip in the Tab S10 was compared to the Tab S8. Now, this project is not finished in any way, shape, or form. It's just the raw footage, a little editing here and there. But I did want to see just how fast each device would take to render the project. So I tried it, and it was the oddest thing. At first, the MediaTek, as you can see, was ahead of the Snapdragon. But somewhere along the lines, it caught a hitch. And the Snapdragon pulled ahead significantly to the point where the MediaTek, or the S10 Ultra, took a whole extra 2 to 3 minutes to finish the same rendering of the movie. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if this is how the chip works, if this is how it's going to work from this point on, but that was sad to see. Now, in the Samsung studio, I decided to throw together a few shortcuts real quick into a random film. I set both to render the Tab S8 maybe a second or two before the Tab S10, and surprisingly, the S10 did finish first. So it did overtake the Tab S8, not by much, but this was a good showing for the MediaTek chipset when it came to rendering movies. Now, comparing the displays side by side, I did turn the brightness up on both of them so that we can get a nice clean picture, and you'll see that the Tab S10 is brighter than the Tab S8. Now, I don't know if it's the same display, maybe the Samsung AI is doing something to what we see. I don't know how these things work. I do know that the S10 does have the anti-glare on it, so that might be one of the features we are looking at. Then it was time to compare the sound of the two tabs. The Tab S8, to my ears, sounds great. But I can't lie, when I heard the S10, a lot of those lows really came through, and there was, the distinction or the separation between some of the sounds did stand out a little bit more, at least to my ears. Take a listen for it yourself. While comparing audio, I also noticed some differences in the UI. For example, Spotify here has an entire area for top games on the S10 Ultra. When I go over to the S8, it's just a grid. There's no area for that. When I checked if the app needed to be updated on the S8, it said the app was up to date. There's simply no area in the UI here that shows me that top games on Spotify. I didn't even know Spotify had top games. Also here in Samsung Studio, you'll notice that the S10 has more editing options than the S8, 4 and 3. Now I'm sure there's other differences in the UI that I simply haven't found yet. I'm not sure if it's a push from Samsung to get their AI into every app. Perhaps these changes are indicative of that. But it is to note that there are changes throughout the UI on the S10 Ultra that aren't on the S8, and both tablets were completely up to date. So here you see I have the brightness turned all the way up on both tablets. We are going to just see how well this anti-glare really works. And just like with my S24, it's pretty plain. This one just seems a bit more dull in how it looks. Yeah, this is the S8 Ultra, while the S10 comes through as more clear. The glare here, you can just plainly see. And as I'm moving the camera around, it's actually pretty stunning how well the anti-glare coating on the screen works. So if nothing else, if you are considering these two, well, just I put the S10 exactly where the S8 was, just so we can say it's fair. And that didn't change much of anything. So the display technology combined with the anti-glare just gives you a much better visual experience outside in direct sunlight. Not that my Tab S8 Ultra cannot be used, I've often used it, but the Tab S10, the tech really does show. You can just see better in the sunlight. And that glare that I had when I was moving the camera around the S8 is not there with the S10, but you can still see it clearly with the S8. So that technology really does work. If you do artwork outside, you just want to escape, the anti-glare will help with that. I will say this. If you are in the market for one of Samsung's Ultra tabs, the difference between the S9 and the S10 Ultra is minimal at best. But the difference between the S8 and the S10 is significant enough that it is truly worth considering the higher price device. Now, with that said, depending on what you intend to do with these tablets, the S8 is a really great deal for such a powerful device. I've had mine since release, and the only reason I even considered the upgrade to the S10 Ultra was because of the huge discount Samsung was offering at the time. They took more than half the price off of the newer one. So I would end up paying much less than I would have paid if I tried to buy it outright. And yes, I do have to trade in my older tablet, but I am getting that many more years of support from the newer device. I get to keep all my accessories of my old device, in essence doubling the amount of S Pens I have and keyboards I have. It's always good to have more than less. And I get the features from the newer device that just weren't available on my older Tab S8 Ultra. All combined, I do think those upgrades are worth the asking price after the trade-in value is applied. Now, if you are looking for something like that, but the absurd price of the S10 Ultra is just making the purchase a out of reach, you should really consider a Tab S8 Ultra. You can find those things on eBay and Amazon for around $400. $400 for that device is a great price, especially if you can find the keyboard cover. I'm not exactly sure how much those would go for now, but if you could get the entire set for around $500, you'd be doing great. Because the Tab S8, you've seen in the testing that I've shown, that it does hold its own against the newer model. In some instances, even beats it. But again, depending on what you do, I can say that the S8 Ultra would suit most people's needs. Because it's just Samsung just made a really great device and built up from there. So I bid adieu to my S8 Ultra and I transition to the S10 Ultra for the foreseeable future. I do hope that it can give me the same very enjoyable experience that I had with the S8 Ultra, and if all's well, I'll keep it just as long, if not longer. So with that said, my name is Angie, the Neon X, and this is what I'm into.